In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a virtual machine using Azure Portal. So there are three tasks that I will perform. The first task is that I'm going to create a virtual machine. And what that simply means is that I will search for the service and I will click on the service to create an instance of that virtual machine. Then after that, I'll connect to the virtual machine. I will do that by connecting to it remotely, which simply means that I will use any of the remote services that can allow me to connect to the virtual machine. So after that, then we can now begin to administer the virtual machine. In order to test that we can successfully administer the virtual machine, we're going to install a web server role. So the web server role will allow us to be able to host a web application on this particular virtual machine. For this demonstration, we are not going to host a web application, but just for us to test that we can actually perform configuration, or we can administer the server once we connect to it virtually. So the only thing I will just do is to test the role by using the IP address of the virtual machine to test once I've enabled that particular role. And once you return the IIS, that simply shows that the role is ready and is configured correctly. So if you want to create any resources in Azure, you come to the search box and look for that resources. So I'm going to search for virtual machine, and you can see from the list of services I can pick my virtual machines. Another way to do this is to come to this place, and this is the same virtual machine. You can select the same virtual machine here. Then I will come to the drop down here, this create drop down. Then I will select Azure Virtual Machines. So what I need to do now is to supply necessary information. These informations will form part of the virtual machine's configuration. Some of the information can be changed, some you cannot change them once you deploy the virtual machine. Also note that some of the information you need to supply here are compulsory, some are optional. So how do you identify the ones that are compulsory from the ones that are not compulsory? Once you see this asterisk like this, it shows that that field is compulsory. For example, the subscription is compulsory, the pay-as-you-go model is already selected, then resource group is also compulsory. From the drop down, I'll pick RG1 resource group. And the next thing is to give the virtual machine a name. I'll call it my VM. The next one is the region. That is where do I want to deploy the virtual machine to. I will leave it like this, East US. Then each of the regions also have availability zones. We used to have like 2 to 3 availability zones in regions. So, but for this particular virtual machine, I'm not going to do with availability options at all. So I'll click this drop down and say no infrastructure redundancy is required. Then next is the image. So the image is the virtual machine operating system. So if you select this drop down, you see different operating system like Ubuntu, like Red Hat. Those are Linux, right? You also have Debian. Those are Linux. We also have Windows operating system. So virtual machine makes use of Windows operating system and Linux operating system. Now these are not the list of the OS that we have. If you click on this link, see all images, you see all of that images, like Windows Server 2016 is even there as well. Also remember that your architecture for the virtual machine will be 64-bit. Then the next thing is that I will select the size, and this size standard D2S_V3. I think is the default one, so we'll leave it like that. But if you want other sizes, you can select the drop down and pick from this list. You can as well use see all sizes, where you see all the size of the virtual machine. There are a lot of them. One thing you notice is that for each of the sizes of the virtual machine, you'll be seeing information about them like the CPU, the RAM, and so on. Even the amount will also be there. For instance, this one now is $137.24 per month. That's an estimated cost. The next thing I need to do now is to come to the administrator account section. This is where I'll supply the username for this virtual machine. So I'll use Azure user as the username. Then I'll supply the password. Then I'll confirm the password. Then if you scroll down, you're going to see another section, inbound portals. If you remember when I was introducing this demonstration, I said that we are going to remotely connect it to the virtual machine. So to do that, we'll need a RDP, which is port 3389. We're also going to test the web server root that we're going to install, and for that we need port 80. So from this drop down now, I'm going to add port 80, which is HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's a protocol for web application. So, and that is that. Then if you come to the tabs here, you can do other additional configurations. Like if you come to this disk now, you're going to see that you can reconfigure the disk. Like for instance, the default disk based on the size of that virtual machine is a premium SSD. That's the disk type. I can switch from premium SSD to another one. So that, but I'm going to leave it like this. And this particular virtual machine, based on the size we selected, doesn't have a data disk. It only contains operating system disk. But I can go ahead and add a data disk by creating a new data disk or attaching a new data disk. But we are not going to do that right now. Then for the networking, this is where you can set anything related to networking. Like if I want a virtual machine to have a virtual network, I will configure the virtual network here. For the subnets of the virtual network, I also configure it and so on. I'm not going to configure anything networking here. So as you can see here, this is NIC, Network Interface Card, for the network security group. You can see I'm not going to touch anything here. But the most important thing you need to confirm here is that we have our HTTP port, which is 80, and we have our RDP port, which is 3389. So, and that is that. If you come to management sections will give you all the informations about how you can manage these virtual machines, like all the things you can configure, all the things you can enable. For instance, if you want to enable auto shutdown, a situation whereby the virtual machine can shut down automatically itself, maybe when it's not being used or whatever, you can do that from here. Also, if you want the Microsoft Entra ID to be the platform that people can use to authenticate to this virtual machine, you can also configure it from here. So there are a lot of things that you can configure. You can also enable the backup from here as well. If you go to the monitoring section, this allows you to configure different options for monitoring of this virtual machine. One of such is the boot diagnostics, which allows you to be able to, troubleshoot boot failures for this virtual machine. I'm not going to enable that, so I will click disabled. I will disable that one. So having selected all these options, the next thing I will do now is to click on the review plus create. So what is happening now in the background is that Azure Portal is now checking all the information that's supplied. It's going to determine if the informations are in order, if everything is okay, and if there's anything I've selected or any information I've supplied that is not right, I'm going to see something like a red sign somewhere here, and here will tell me that it is failed. But right now it's telling me validation was passed. Now that it's telling me that the validation has passed, I can go ahead and click on the create button. So what is happening right now is that it's creating the virtual machine at the background, and this will take between 2, 3, or 4 minutes maximum. Depends on what you selected. Like configurations that you've selected and all those things will determine the number of resources that is going to deploy along with virtual machine. So you might deploy a virtual machine that will take 2 minutes to, to be deployed. And another person or even you might also deploy a virtual machine that take like 6-7 minutes to be deployed. This depends on what you actually selected in terms of the things you want to configure. So what is happening right now is that it's saying that deployment is in progress for this virtual machine. So this will take few minutes, like I said, and if you take notes, you see that it has deployed certain resources, and it's also showing that it's deploying some resources. Like it's just deploying the VM right now, but the IP address of the VM is already, is done, and so I can see it's even ready right now. Now that the virtual machine is ready, if you go to the notification here, you will see that it's also showing the same information that deployment succeeded. So I can click on the go to resource, or I can still click on the same button here. This will take me to the overview of the virtual machine that I just deployed right now. And from here, I can see the configuration of that virtual machine. From the overview here, you can see the resource group where I deployed the virtual machine to. The status of the virtual machine is saying that the virtual machine is running. The location is East US, the subscription where I deploy it to, the operating system, the size. Now this is the public IP of the virtual machine. So this is the IP address that you are going to use to be able to access the information of the virtual machine outside that virtual machine. And that's why we say it's public IP address. I will need this IP address to remotely connect to the virtual machine. I will also need this IP address if I want to see the web server configuration, if I want to see the IIS, or if they host any web application inside the server. This is the IP address that I would need to access that information. So what I'm going to do next now is that we are going to move to the task 2. Task 2 is where we connect to the virtual machine remotely. So I'll click on this connect drop down and I'll select connect. This will take me to the connect section, and from the connect section it's going to show me once again the IP address of the virtual machine. And if I have an RDP software on my system, I can just pick this IP address, put it on the RDP on my system, and it will definitely connect. So I can as well use the native RDP. This native RDP contains the IP address of the virtual machine. So what I need to do is to download the RDP file, and I'll use this download file to connect to the virtual machine. So I'll click connect, and you can see it's ready to connect now. So it's asking me to supply the username and password. It has already picked the username. The reason is because we downloaded the native RDP. So I'll only supply the password, and I'll click OK. Then I'll click yes. This is talking about certificates. So I'll just click yes to accept the certificate. Then in a few minutes or seconds from now, it's going to show us that virtual machine. You will now realize now that it's like a normal machine, it's like a normal system. The only thing is that is a software configuration of a computer. You can see now we are seeing the operating system now, and it's trying to connect to the server manager of the server now. So once the server manager is ready, we can now go ahead with our configuration. So virtual machine is one of the solutions that we have in Azure, and virtual machine is very easy to configure. It's not that difficult to configure. If you look at what I just did now, I supply necessary information, and you can see the machine is actually ready. It's not up to 2 or 3 minutes. If not because I was explaining certain things, I will have finished deploying this virtual machine since. So the server manager is still loading, and we'll wait for the server manager to be ready. And once the server manager is ready, we can go ahead now and continue our configuration. Now the server manager is ready. So in order to install the web server role, I can make use of manage section on the server manager. This will allow me to install the web server role using the GUI. I can as well use PowerShell. So I'll come here and I will type power and I'll right click on the PowerShell here and I will run it as administrator. Then from the PowerShell now, I will type the scripts that will allow me to install that role. So I will say install Windows Visual. On that Windows Visual, I will specify the name. The name is web-server. Then I will say hyphen include management tools. And I'll press enter. So it's going to install the role now. So it's collecting data, and by doing that, it's performing that installation, or let me say is enabling the role, because the role is already there. We're just trying to enable that role. So once the information gets to the 100%, then it will tell us if the task or the action is successful or if it fails. Now you can see success true, and this task doesn't require that the system restarts. You can say restart needed no. So what it simply means that the server is ready. So I'll just minimize the server now and I'll go back to my to the overview of this virtual machine, and I'll go there and get the IP address again. So I can get the IP address of the connect here. I can also get it from the overview. Then I'll come here and I'll input the IP address. By doing this, I'm trying to access the port 80 of that server, and as we can see, the Internet Information Services is available. So it simply means that the server is ready to host any web application. So what we have done is that we have created a new virtual machine running a web server that is accessible via its public IP address. So if I have any web application now to host, I can go ahead and host that web application. But for this demonstration, we are not going to host any web application. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to this channel. Please, let me know what you think in the comment section. And do not forget to leave a like and share this video. See you in the next one.